This is a review of East Oak Studios workshop with Richard Kokenash and Michael Klein, Floral Painting Livestream Workshop, The Impressionist and Academic Tradition. East Oak Studio let me watch this workshop and is also letting me offer you 30% off of it till the end of September 2019. So the discount code for that is JMK Floral. So once you get this workshop, you get emailed a link and that takes you to a web page that has a list of all the materials that they're using. So all the materials from paints with brands of paints, brushes, the mediums that they're using, and the supports like the panels that they're painting on. And also you get photos of the floral arrangements that they're painting from. They're painting from life, but they've got a photo that you can save and continually look at, so you can see how they're breaking down their floral arrangements into brushstrokes. And this workshop was a live stream, so it was over 3 days, 3 hours a day, so that's 9 hours total. And since it was a live stream, people were able to submit questions. So about every hour or so, I would say that they would go over those questions and discuss them. So the way that this workshop is set up is that they're both working on their floral paintings while also talking about painting philosophies and the different schools of thought with painting from the Impressionist view and the academic tradition. And it seems that Richard Kokenash is very purely an Impressionist, and Michael Klein definitely is, I would say, has Impressionist tendencies as well, but also influences of the academic tradition. And through this workshop, they're both working on different floral arrangements. And Michael Klein, he's working on one painting, one floral arrangements through the whole 3 days. And Richard then, the first day he works on one and then is finished with it. And then the day 2 and 3, he's working on a different floral arrangement. And the pattern seems to be that at the start of each day, they will both talk about what they're doing painting technique-wise, what they're doing, and what their plans are to move the painting along for that day. And then for the rest of the time, it's talking about the different schools of thought with Impressionism and academic. I really enjoyed this workshop. I enjoy listening to all those different schools of thought and the different ways that someone can be making a painting, and not just talking about it too, but you visually see that because Michael and Richard, they work very differently. Even though when they start the painting, they're different paintings, they are both talking about how they work from dark to light and that they thin down their paint first to get kind of like a really broadly work out the image. And even though they're doing that same concept, they're still, the way that they do it is very different. So that's pretty interesting to see that they both agree with those ways of starting a painting, but still the way that it's done, it's very different from each other. They also talk about a lot of different topics that are touched here, like color harmony, how to build up a painting, how to interpret what you're seeing into paint, a lot of different things. And something that I enjoyed too while watching this is the way that they're talking about these things. It's more like a conversation between two old friends rather than being too stiff and formal. So the conversation like really flows and goes in different ways. They also talk about different materials that they use, kind of uncommon materials. Richard Kokenash uses a reducing lens that looks like a magnifying glass but does the opposite. And so when he holds it up and you can see it in the camera will shoot through the lens so you can see, and it makes everything smaller. So he uses that when he's starting the painting, so he can kind of get the basic ideas of the shape in like a thumbnail version, but also he pulls it out too for later on in the painting, I think, to check himself and make sure that he's simplifying it well. He also uses these brushes. Well, they're not paint brushes. It almost looks like a spatula is at the end of it. And it's by those Princeton Catalyst brushes. I've seen them in the art store. Those are the brushes with the brown handles, and it has the black bristles. And so I've seen those, I'm not exactly sure what they're called. I don't know if he gave them a name in the video either, but they just look like a spatula at the end instead of bristles. And so he uses that, and you see him use it, and he puts down paint with it. But I think mostly through this, making up his paintings, he takes paint away from it or moves paint around and like manipulates it on the panel with this like weird spatula looking brush. He also uses those brushes that the handles are 2 feet long. I've always wanted to get a pair of those and try those out. And that's how he starts his painting, with that. So he can be stepped really far back and uses those really long handle brushes. So he, that's very much like the Impressionist way of doing it, where you're not like getting too tight focused on details, but he can step really far back and be making his brushstroke decisions that way. I'm trying to think if Michael Klein used any odd tool, and I can't think of anything that he did. You do see him paint with his fingers a lot, like he'll put down brushstrokes and then manipulate the edges with his fingers while he's working on his painting. Michael Klein also gives a demo during the workshop with color mixing and color harmony. And one thing that he talks about that I really connected with is when you're painting and making decisions with your painting, it's like stepping into your painting, like it's a 3-dimensional thing. So it's taking your mind away from creating that you're creating an illusion of form, but it's more getting your mind in there that you literally are. So when you're putting a paint stroke in, you're pushing something farther back into the painting or pulling something out depending on the value and color that you're using. And so he kind of talks about that when he is giving his demo on color, saying that it's a 2-dimensional plane, but if you were to add this other color, it would kind of be like a sphere coming out of it. So that was really interesting to listen to, and I know I kind of go into that headspace too when I make my paintings. And then also on the 3rd day, at the end, towards the end of his painting, Michael Klein then goes over different ways that he makes brushstrokes, which I love seeing because I love the way that he does like a variety of different brushstrokes. So he shows you how he does different ones and kind of like holds the brush and like manipulates and moves the brush around to make the different brushstrokes. So that was really cool to see. The video did freeze a few times. Just the video part of it froze, but not the audio, so you can still hear them talking. And when it did freeze, they acknowledged it, and they would go over in time as well to make up for that. And since they're doing it live, they're doing the best that they can to get it corrected. Another cool thing, since they're doing it live, is with the questions that I mentioned before, people could submit questions, but Michael Klein was saying that he was thinking maybe in the future it would be cool if people could call in. And so he tested that out. So he set his number, so then a woman got to call in and talk, and I thought that was so cool. It'd be cool if they can get that up and running in the future. I think that adds just another bit of making this like really accessible, that even though you're not there, you really feel like you're there, because then you're not just watching 2 people paint, but everyone can interact with each other. And then as far as camera angles, so you would have a view either split screen and you would see Richard's painting getting developed and Michael's painting getting developed, or it would be Michael's painting with his palette or Richard's painting with his palette, or there would be a view of Richard and Michael talking to each other. And when the camera was on the paintings, you would see the full painting mostly. So there wasn't a lot of tight shots zoomed in as they're making specific brushstrokes. So before, I was watching it on my iPad, but then I put it up on my TV screen to make the image bigger. So I recommend, if you get this, to try and get this video feed on your largest screen possible, so you can more easily see what they're doing. And with that being said, if you're looking for a workshop where you're watching step by step a flower painting being developed, I had purchased and watched Michael Klein's flower painting workshop, and that was a really good. You saw everything, all the brushes, or you saw him putting every single brush stroke that he put down, you saw it, and the camera was tight in it so you could really see it, and also him mixing up his paint. The way that this is set up, you're not seeing absolutely everything because it's two painters working. So if the screen is just on Michael's painting for a little bit, you're not seeing Richard make his brush strokes and vice versa. So I really enjoyed this workshop, and I really like seeing how different painters develop paintings and then talking about different ways that other painters make paintings as well. And then you're also watching them make these flower paintings. So if you want to watch a workshop of a floral painting getting made where you see every brush stroke getting put down, this probably isn't the one that you want to see, because you get a lot more content of like philosophies with painting, but you're not seeing every single brushstroke that Michael Klein or Richard Coconash is putting down. All right, again, if you want to get this, you can get 30% off with the JMK Floral, and that's through the end of September 2019.